Hello everyone and welcome again to my how-to education channel. As I promised you last week, today we're gonna continue with how to ace economics, demand and supply applications part 2. After watching this video, don't forget to leave me your feedback. Before starting, let's take a look at some definitions. A consumer surplus is a situation that takes place when the price that consumers actually pay for a product or service is less than the price they're willing to pay. Thus, it brings benefit to the consumer. Producer surplus is a situation that takes place when the price that producers actually receive for a product or service is more than the price they're willing to receive. Thus, it brings benefits to the producer. Social surplus are the total benefits gained by producers and consumers in a market. It is equal to the sum of consumer surplus and producer surplus. As a rule of thumb, and in case of a lack of market inefficiencies, the consumer surplus is usually the area above the equilibrium price. The idea behind it is that consumers are expecting to pay a price above equilibrium when making a purchase. Let's say that they expect to pay price T, but they end up paying the equilibrium price, let's say price P, which seems to be much less than price T. Thus, the difference between price T, which is the price that the consumer was expecting to pay, and price P, which is the equilibrium price, and the price that the consumer actually paid, is how much the consumer won for each unit that he or she bought. I got the graph aside from the following reference website. As a rule of thumb, the producer surplus is usually the area below the equilibrium price, unless in case of inefficiencies. The idea behind it is that producers are expecting to receive a market price below equilibrium when selling an item, let's say price PM, but they end up receiving the equilibrium price, which is price P1 in this case. Price P1 seems to be much higher than price PM. Thus, the difference between price PM, which is the market price, and price P1, which is the equilibrium price, and the price that the producer actually received, is how much the producer won for each unit that he or she sold. I found the graph aside from the following reference websites. If we add the consumer surplus to the producer surplus, the total is what we call the social surplus. In other words, social surplus is the sum of the benefits received by the consumer and the benefits received by the producer. The graph aside shows the entire social surplus area. The social surplus can also be called total surplus, or gains from trade, or even economic surplus. It really depends on which economics book you are studying from. I found the graph aside from the following reference website. Nevertheless, the market does not always follow an ideal pattern and might not always be at equilibrium. That is, quantity demanded might not always equal quantity supplied, and some inefficiencies might occur. A deadweight loss is a cost to the society resulting from inefficiencies in the market due to the poor allocation of goods and services. This poor allocation is usually the result of certain government interventions, such as the price ceilings and the price floors. Let's go over an example of a deadweight loss in order to clarify this concept. Let's say that there is a new gym opening up next to your place. and that your subscription will cost $20. You imagine that, taking into consideration all the facilities and the university degrees of the instructors, the subscription was worth $25, and so you loved the $20 price. Now, assume the government imposes a new price ceiling, and the owners decide to make the subscription worth of $30. At $30, you're not willing to subscribe, since you think that it is an unfair price. Many consumers, but not all, feel this way, meaning that the demand for subscription decreased and the revenues declined. The deadweight loss in this example are the unsold gym subscription packages as a result of the new price. In the case of price ceiling, the government does not allow producers to sell at a higher price. The government sets a price ceiling below equilibrium since it believes that the equilibrium is too high and that prices need to be kept affordable to the public. As seen in the previous lecture, since the price ceiling is below the equilibrium, the market will experience shortages. Producers will supply fewer goods than they should because the market prices declined. Some consumers will then not be able to get their goods, which makes them lose some of their benefits. That is, consumer surplus is lost. Producer benefits will also be lost since the price declined. That is, producer surplus is lost. Some of these lost benefits become consumer surplus, and others disappear as a deadweight loss, which is represented by the lower gray triangle in the graph aside. In the case of a price floor, the government does not allow a good or service to be sold below a minimum price in order to help the supplier or seller. The government then sets this price above the equilibrium price, which leads to an excess supply. Let's take the minimum wage for example. The government fixes the minimum wage above the equilibrium wage. Because wages are higher, more individuals are willing to supply labor services, but fewer employers are willing to pay high wages, reducing therefore the market demand for labor. Thus, the quantity supplied exceeds the quantity demanded, resulting in a surplus. This surplus ends up creating deadweight losses to the economy. The quantity demanded in the market, Q1, is less than the equilibrium quantity, QE. Producer surplus decreases by the lower gray triangle, and the market faces more unemployment as a result of lower demand. However, those who actually work will benefit from higher wages. At the same time, producers receive a transfer from consumer surplus, thus decreasing the consumer surplus. Companies now end up having to pay higher wages but face a larger supply of less qualified labor. This is it from economics for this week, but if you have reached the end of this video, it is because the content is helpful to you somehow. If this is the case, then please give your friends and acquaintances the opportunity to have access to these videos by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. We will be continuing with more economics next Wednesday, but before that, I will see you all on Friday with some finance exercises. Thank you so much.